so that by the time we get into 2027, 2028, we won't be seeing 10-year treasuries at the 4 or 5% level, but probably over 10%. And that implies also that in the Western world, long-term bond yields will be in double digits as well.
Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Simon Hunt of Simon Hunt Strategic Services. His website is simon-hunt.com. Simon, welcome back to the channel.
Well, thank you very much for having me in these interesting, if not exciting times.
Definitely interesting times. And I wanted to start out with the bond market because I've seen that the Bank of England apparently increased short-term operations to big financial institutions so they could liquidity problems vis-a-vis the gilt market. Yesterday, we saw gilt yields rising to record highs, and all of a sudden they turned around. So it looks like the Bank of England is intervening. I've seen that the Bank of Japan has been intervening for over a month in the JGB market. And tomorrow we have the non-farm payroll number, but it could be a weak number. But for some reason, I have a feeling that long-term bond yields could be in for a rough ride in that they could continue to rise. So I wanted to get your opinion on the bond markets.
Well, I think the whole global financial system is pretty fragile. And it's in the major central banks' interests to bring long-term bond yields down in order for the Fed in particular to do their major refinancing. So our take, based on our technical associate, is that in the very short term, we could see 10-year treasuries rising a tad from here. But by the middle of next year, we will see them closer to 3% than to 4%. It's from that moment that we see an inflationary takeoff, almost stagflation, with underlying inflation rising faster than underlying growth. So that by the time we get into 2027, 2028, we won't be seeing 10-year treasuries at the 4 or 5% level, but probably over 10%. And that implies also that in the Western world, long-term bond yields will be in double digits as well. The reason for this is that we are going to see a repetition of what we encountered in the 1970s and early 1980s, when in the mid-1970s, having seen inflation rising sharply, it then came down, and we're in the same bottoming out process, and they will start rising in the second half of next year. The issue then is what happens to the global financial system and economy when bond vigilantes will be demanding a premium over inflation levels, double digit. So that is going to then lead to a massive crash in asset prices across the world, um, as yields in the double digits just crash the financial system. So, in a nutshell, that's what we're seeing. Um, Over to you.
Yeah, so you actually think there will be a little bit of a respite for
Yeah, I think so, and I
till
think
next year.
you rather indicated that that could be the case, given what the BOE is doing, and the Fed is trying to do, and the BOJ is trying to do.
Yeah.
I think uh, a centralized central bank effort to get these yields down. I mean, the risk of an escalation, they all must know the risk of conflict in Ukraine escalating into real war, as the delusional leaders in the EU3 and Brussels don't want peace, they want war to divert people's attention from the problems in Europe, which are intergovernment debt, Target 2, for instance, and countrywide debt, plus electorate frustration and discontent with the power of Brussels over their own economies, and the immigration issue. I mean, you live in London, and I'm hearing from, how can I describe it, from uh, military intelligence sources that either active or retired military personnel are forming militias in order to defend the people, because virtually a civil war is considered to be a real risk. You've got the same issues in, not of the same type, but same discontent that could easily lead to civil wars in France and Germany.
So
I
I
mean,
guess
I've got German friends who've just come back, and they say Germany is just, how can I describe it? Uh, it's just a fractured country.
yeah, and it's interesting going back slightly to the inflation picture. I just had a look. I just saw a chart about half an hour ago on Twitter or X, and it seems to be what you're talking
That's
about here.
that's the scenario that I was
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, from the night like in
Yeah,
the 70s. Yeah, and like you said, maybe in the second
yeah,
half
yeah,
of next
yeah, yeah,
year it'll
yeah,
pick up. Yeah.
yeah.
Going back to Germany and the situation in London and also France, I mean, the finance minister warned about the IMF. And also in Germany, I don't know if you've seen the news of these politicians who all they're running for local elections in the most populous German state, and six or seven of them died from the AFT. So there seems to be a lot going on. And do you think the desperation, let's say, of the BOJ, BOE, and Fed to keep rates low is is kind of related to the socioeconomic situation? Because even in Japan, people are getting restless about immigration, cost of living. So I guess my question is, it looks like they might try to keep things under wraps, but by the middle of next year, things could unravel. And how is that related to, let's say, do they want to bring a war as well in, like Brussels, to distract the people from the domestic problems?
I think that is a real risk, and and if it happens, it will happen before the end of this year.
So, yeah, it's interesting because beginning of September is the like anniversary of when World War II started. And so that was like 86 years ago, which is like Howe and Strauss, who wrote The Fourth Turning, they talk about the seculum, which is usually like 80 to 100 years. So we must be due for a big conflagration. So what do you think is the probability of a major war? And I don't want to see a major war, but it looks like the EU, Germany, France, and the UK have no indication, well, they have no intention of negotiating with Russia for peace. If anything, they keep provoking Russia. I heard that Merz called President Putin one of the worst ever dictators and murderers in history. And I guess that didn't go down well with the Russians.
Not really. Um, I let's put this into the big picture. What we have now is the conflict between the unilateral world led by America against the multilateral world led by Russia, China, and now India. The message that for me came out strongly from the SOE and the bilateral meetings in Beijing and the military parade is that SCO members, and since many of them are members of BRICS, have really decided it's time for action, and that they are going to stand firm against whatever Washington tries to do. So, for instance, Putin is not going to give 1 inch on what it wants out of Ukraine. And I think that it's very likely the big issue for Moscow is their future long-term security. And that means in one form or another, they need control over all Ukraine, because within a short period of time, it's most likely that America will have hypersonic technology or the equivalent, and therefore drawing a boundary line at the Dnieper River is not going to give them sufficient radar warning of any impending missiles. So my bet is that they will get control over Kiev, get control over Odessa, and then they will say, now we are prepared to negotiate. Our terms are these. Accept them or don't accept them. And when you read what President Xi said in addressing his troops before the military parade, that message was very, very clear. I will send you a note that I sent out this morning with the relevant quotations, because it was really, when you read between the lines, it's either accept what we want, or else it's conflict. I will send you the actual quotes because um, I read them as basically saying, let's come together in dialogue with mutual respect, or else we're going to take you on.
So before we proceed further with the interview, I just want to give a shout out to Dirty Man Safe. So with traditional safes, their so-called advantage is that criminals can't break into them. But Dirty Man Safe is different. Its advantage is that it's undetectable, so they can't even try to break into it. And that's only one of the many features of Dirty Man Safe. They provide three different sizes, and you can bury your gold coins, silver coins, bars, important documents, jewelry, and anything that's valuable for you. So yeah, Dirty Man Safe is affordable, convenient, provides you peace of mind, confidentiality, and sustainability. So if you want to find out more, there's a link below in the description. It will take you to a landing page. And if you use that link, you get 10% off if you were to decide to buy a Dirty Man Safe. And they ship it to Europe as well, not just the United States. Yeah, I guess basically the he's still trying a last gasp effort to sort things through diplomacy, but and then he's saying if you don't, we're gonna have to resort to force, and that's
Well,
concerning.
I think that one of the messages coming out of these and other meetings is that the big countries in SCO and BRICS have really got tired of diplomacy from Washington. It gets them nowhere. And in fact, I think it was Iran's foreign minister who actually said, we have given up with negotiating with Washington. It gets us nowhere. If that's the view of the leadership in Russia, it will be the same in Iran, rather. It will be the same in Russia, China, and India.
Yeah, and moving over a little bit towards the markets, do you think the recent breakout in gold and silver is partly related to the geopolitical side of things, and also related to the fact that maybe the markets are sniffing that the central banks are going to intervene to keep bonds, let's say, elevated and yields down. What's your view on gold and silver? And also, if second part of this question, if there is some kind of world conflict, that definitely will be bullish for commodities, wouldn't it? Because the supply chains would all be disrupted.
Big question, Mario. I think we will see gold prices rising by another 200 in the next month or so. I then think that we are going to have a good correction, which may be aligned to the central banks intervening in the bond markets with a spillover into gold. So I think that by the end of the year, or early next year, we could see gold, I'd say probably more in the first 6 months of next year, we could see gold at 2,800. And then that is a massive buy. Massive buy because we will see escalating escalating conflicts, if not wars, and rising inflation. Don't ask me what the price of gold will be in the future. But if our technical analyst is right on the US dollar index, the DXY, we have the DXY in 2027, 2028 at 50, which is effectively half today's level. And if that is the case, you will probably see a doubling in the gold price.
I mean, 50, yeah, that's I think the low in 2008 was 70. So yeah,
At the moment we're at about 98
yeah, I mean that's
on
a
the DXY.
massive move. That's towards the middle to end, well, 27 and 27 to 2028.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's when a lot of these cycles converge.
Yeah. And how do you see the stock market right now? I mean, we're entering the period of the year, September, October is usually seasonally bearish. And there's been so many people, the bears, they keep calling for tops, but the market keeps going higher. Maybe because even though the Fed hasn't cut rates for a long time, since I think end of last year. M2, for example, is making new highs. There still seems to be a lot of liquidity. Yeah. So, yeah, how do you see the stock market? Do you see it?
Well, from the experts that I listen to, um, the Treasury, for its own internal reasons, will be draining about 580 million or billion dollars from the system. So the markets are due for a correction. As I see it, it's not the big institutions that have been driving the markets higher, but the retail sector. And that's a troubling sign. So I think we are going to have a nice correction, maybe 15 odd percent before the end of the year. What worries me, coming back to our earlier discussion, is that if Europe does move into Ukraine to support the Ukrainian army, then you will see a flood of money leaving Europe. I think probably big funds have probably already started. But as soon as the first shot is fired, Europe will introduce capital controls. If Europe introduces capital controls, given the interconnectivity of banks, what are going to be the repercussions globally? I can argue then that if this is the case, and if, as seems likely, that Israel is preparing another attack on Iran, and that Iran is preparing itself not just to defend the country, but to launch another devastating attack on Israel. So my worry is that what I am looking for in 2027, 2028 could occur in 2026, 2027.
Yeah, I see. And
I I think this is a big risk.
yeah, war. Yeah. And do you think if there is a conflict between second conflict that is between Israel and Iran, that the Russians and the Chinese would join in and that could trigger a bigger conflict?
I think that um, I think that Iran is confident that they will not need the assistance of Russia and China. Russia and China have already supplied new missile technology, offensive and defensive missiles, and all sorts of um, products that are needed to produce missiles and drones. But if that help is needed, it will be forthcoming. Um,
Yeah. And
so, I mean, if one listens to the people who really spoke the truth about how serious Iran's last attack on Israel was, and if we get another attack on Israel, it's going to be devastating.
yeah, I mean, I heard that too, that Israel was desperate and asked the US to intervene and bomb that Iranian nuclear facility. And then the Iranians, yeah, telegraphed their bombing and then they stopped. But, and also, I think the government in Israel, Netanyahu specifically, he wants to prolong this because domestically he's not a very popular leader, is he?
That's certainly the message that one gathers from people who follow the Hebrew press. It's a very, very disunited country. Um, Serious people are really saying it's the end of Israel as we've known it. To what extent is America backing Netanyahu, given the support that came from the Jewish community in America? So a lot of a lot of balls in the air, and in particular, in today's local newspaper in Dubai, commentary from the leader of the UAE and MBS in Saudi, unless there is a real peace movement in the West Bank and Gaza, then that is the end of the Abraham Accords. What game is America playing? My suspicion is that America is behind the development of Greater Israel, which has been Netanyahu's dream, and the objective of the right-wing movement that control his cabinet. Look what's going on in Lebanon and Syria. Saudi has been very strongly supporting the growth of the ISIS movement in those two countries. Now, if they withdraw that support, if they interpret events as the end of the Abraham Accords, then you're going to see chaos in Lebanon and Syria, let alone across the region.
So being in Dubai, are you concerned about the situation there, or it wouldn't impact Dubai that much if things got more heated?
The very the leadership here and in Saudi Arabia are very clever at playing both sides. Don't forget that UAE does huge trade with Iran. There's a large Iranian population here. It's a very big and modern Iranian school. So if the worst case erupts, then I think it is the American base only that will be hit by Iran.
I see. Changing subject and wrapping up. I know you don't live here. I don't know how long you haven't lived here for, but just your opinion on what's going on economically and politically with the UK, whether you see any light at the end of the tunnel for the financial situation. And there's a lot of people worried, of course, about the coming budget and wealth taxes and things like that. I think the UK has the biggest number of millionaires that have left the country in the world.
That's a huge question. Um, Being an outsider living in Dubai and looking on the UK, I think somehow or other in the short term, probably with the support of America and American big financial institutions, the worst will be alleviated in stock markets, but the country itself will be veering towards civil war. So we could well see big corrections over the next 6 months in the stock market, very fragile bond market. But the big crash is postponed until that 27-28 period, unless, I keep coming back to the unless, Europe physically goes into Ukraine. Then all bets are off. And what will should happen in 27-28 will happen in 26-27. That's my bottom line.
Yeah, so yeah, it seems like you expect something not great, conflict, and that it will either be next year or in 2 to 3 years' time. And yeah, Any final thoughts for the viewers, Simon?
Yeah, don't invest for the long term. Play these short cycles. Make sure your deep freezers are full of food. If you have a garden, convert some of it into a vegetable patch because food prices globally are going to soar. In July this year, on the FAO Global Food Index, it rose by 7.6%, with products like vegetable oils and meat rising in big double-digit numbers. So in financial assets, make sure that you secure your future by having a good allocation of your assets in gold.
Yeah, that I agree with. The rest as well, I agree with. Yeah, have something outside the system. That's definitely wise. Simon,
And hold your gold outside the banking system.
yeah, definitely outside the banking system. You can't really trust the banks. Uh,
No.
Simon, thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch. And always great to talk to you
Super. And thank you for having me. And I'll send you that short piece.
about Xi's comments, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Take care.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks.